Okay, Talavera, what's happened so far? We finished the first day and switched over. That's not a big deal. The first day is rather short. It starts at 3:30 and not a lot happened. In the first video, the French drove the Brits from Casa de Salinas all the way down. No big deal. They're not intended to defend there. The Brits moved up and took their defensive position here. Victor launched a very ineffectual and abortive attack just before night fell. Now this is close to the historical reality. The historical reality, and I don't know if it could be done with the optional night movement rules, okay? Just because they're so fucking extreme in terms of failing to be able to actually engage at night. But I mean, you could go one hex at a time, basically, and advance very, very slowly, which maybe isn't that bad, but anyway. Instead, he launched his attack just before nightfall started, got it off early, and swept in and honestly got the shit creamed out of him by the artillery. And it ended up being less effective, probably, even though it was ineffective historically, because the English artillery positions were just too strong. And they drove the French into, you know, taking worse losses than they would have, than they did historically. I was able to be a little bit more proactive with Victor, and that probably is not a good idea. And I suspect that happened the first time as well that I played this. My plans now are to try to launch an attack around the north, but it's hard because I'm relying on coordination. First of all, Joseph sent orders to Victor, and Victor has not paid attention to them. And now I can't, by the rules, I can't try to implement those orders through initiative process, which would be an appealing choice because honestly, the chance of distorting these orders, they're on the -2 layer, is fairly high, and high delays are also quite possible. Whereas Victor's pretty good at taking initiative, 54 to 66. 54 to 66 would put me on a D5 or D4, neither of which is great, right? But they're not terrible. So written orders work better, even in this kind of situation. Plus, Victor's initiative orders, if he does something purely on his own initiative, are not the optimal choice because he ends up very likely to abandon them. And not based on I didn't get support, just he goes down to a 0, well, he gets, yeah, I think he goes down to a 0 commander rating for core attack stoppage checks on his initiative orders. I've got reasonable orders for 4th Corps that if I can implement the orders that I want it for 1st Corps, good things will happen. But I got to keep making checks to see whether or not the French will follow the orders. Other than that, not a hell of a lot has happened. And that's kind of my fear throughout this scenario, is that just not a hell of a lot's going to happen. Unless I get the perfect attack on this, it's not going to fall easily. And that's where I've kind of committed to going. Had I tried an attack here, maybe things would be different. But I'm going with the more historical attempt, and I've got a worse result out of it because there was still some daylight left when I launched my attack. Wish myself talk less, play more. And it's not like I've been playing a whole hell of a lot, but I've got through most of the night. And Mackenzie has just recovered, I believe, on the 2 a.m. turn. So let me move that off. The French starting to deploy the line as indicated by the original orders. The distorted orders have not been discovered yet, and even better, the orders to Victor ended up distorted as well. Great roll. You know, I mean, there's some chance, right? But yeah, both my major orders being distorted. This is turning out to be a non-battle, right? Which might be for the best. The real problem is that the French got repulsed in the historical battle, and the French army isn't in as bad a shape as it was. But this is nasty terrain, especially with the. So if this didn't have special rules for the Spaniards, you'd go pick on the Spaniards, beat the shit out of them, get your points off them, get the territory from them, and say screw it to the British in that great location. Yeah, but the fact that the Spanish can withdraw and actually gain points by doing so makes them really questionable to attack. However, it might make sense to attack now. Let me take a look. Anyway, I've got 2 distorted orders. Nothing's happening. And I don't know that any of those orders are distorted in the sense that I can't write anything. Now let's take a look at the enough. At the start of the Allied 28th turn, of any Allied 28th turn. Yeah. Okay, so it's not like I have to make a decision back here or whatever. It's that if I put too much pressure on the Spaniards in that second day, they can withdraw at any point. And you know, I don't have any kind of tricky thing where I wait till a certain time and do it or whatever. It's not advantageous for me to beat up on the Spaniards, except to get the terrain. And if you recall, the Spanish units. Let's see. The Allied player gets a victory point for each Spanish division that manages to leave the board with all its components in an unwrecked state. So, as long as the Spanish do some damage to the French, withdrawing seems like a reasonable option. The points the Spanish will get from withdrawing is probably worth the terrain points that they get, and those terrain points aren't enough to sort of win the battle for France. So it all doesn't look good to fight your way through just the Spaniards. Driving them from the board is probably fine if you knock the Brits off first, but just going after them doesn't look like a victory point option. And it looks like the game has been designed to make sure, go fight the British, drive them away. The Spaniards, their army will melt or not as required. Anyway, not moving any pieces here, just letting you guys know. You know, so I think I mentioned this. Somebody brought up, hey, why don't you just, film all your movements or whatever on the board? There are a few reasons for that. One is, it was never what this was about. This was meant to come in and once you get kind of the idea of what the gameplay is, whatever, informational part of that first video or 2 or whatever gives in any given series, where it shows you how to use the mechanisms, I wanted to get away from that, right? So just watching me, let's say we had a fixed camera here on a tripod, watching me look up rules that I've forgotten and everything. Yes, I do a lot of that. I did a lot of that over on UPOP. But again, that's a Euro-style game. It's a different kind of flavor to me, and I'm never happy with videoing them because I can't just come back and tell you, hey, here's what happened, right? The here's what happened, that broad overview, is what the videos were supposed to be like. But beyond that, I don't think that I could do it, right? The fun for me is holding the camera and just talking and giving this overview thing. And, so it's just not going to happen, right? There are other people who set up a camera and just, you know, try to play. One of the things is I do have to take, you know, lots of timeouts to go look things up and everything. It's just not fun to watch, right? I don't know if this is fun to watch, but I play to what my own views are as to what should be there. And obviously, I don't get a hell of a lot of views off of the playthroughs, but I don't think I'd get any more if I just fixed the camera and showed me playing it. Anyway, we're on the Brits who... Wellesley can decide to do something with Mackenzie at this point. A little later as dawn breaks, neither distortion's been discovered yet. But this is a good point to break for a little bit because everything's in range now. So all these guns are sitting here 4 hexes or so apart, and we're just going to see shelling start happening between the two. The French are in a default defense, so they're allowed to fire, so are the English. Wellesley's starting to move Mackenzie up. I can move Fane somewhere. Is that who it is? Payne? Somewhere, but again, it's hard to find anywhere to put the cav. The only place I want to put them is up here. And I may write orders to get them up there because we're beginning the day and, you know, that's hard enough. But I want to get Mackenzie to extend this, maybe refuse the flank a little bit there in the vineyards and just, you know, because I don't want this just collapsing, right? There's capability for me to get in there. If I recall correctly, the orchards are blocking terrain, so being in them, it would be impossible to get a line of sight on there. So if the French decided to attack the left flank of this command, that hilltop position wouldn't do a lot. But if I only had like 1 corps or something, sure, maybe I'd do that. But with the amount of force I have, I feel like I have to engage more troops than just a couple of Brits on the end of a Spanish line. All right. One of the real problems I have with what this series has done, other than Austerlitz, there are no really big earth-shaking type of battles. And none of them feel like the same kind of massive engagements. Sure, this is 2 days, but, you know, it just doesn't feel like I fought, right? And I kind of haven't. I moved up the hill, I got repulsed, great. Now what? Yeah, we'll have another battle at some point, but the same, if we look at Marengo, it's fairly small. Obviously, Vimiero and the couple free print and plays are relatively small. Aspern Essling is probably reasonably large, but it never feels like it plays out in sort of the dramatic fashion that I like. And it really feels like the NBS has been doomed by the choice, or was doomed by the choice of battles that were taken throughout it. Now, maybe they went for, hey, let's do this little known battle and whatever. Look, this system is so different from everything except Viva l'Empereur and that I've seen out there, right? And it's so different from even the Viva l'Empereur in terms of, like, especially now. Okay, the earlier version of it, Viva l'Empereur, was like kind of maybe a light NBS. But now, in the 3.0, they really released something that feels like it's as historically accurate and as the Labatt games are. More so, honestly, but we'll get into that. Maybe if I look at Labatt's more. I was really unimpressed with Dresden. That's all I want to say. But given that, you know, given that it's at that level, right, with a different focus, a focus that's more appealing to me, one more on command and control, and less on individual maneuver and movement rates of units under certain circumstances. Although this has taken too much of that on, but that's a different It's a different term, different problem. But yeah, it really feels like, they left a lot of the big ones out. There were so many huge battles of such importance. It's just so painful to play out these things, and they feel the same thing happens with CWB, right? Now, early on, I had most of the big CWB ones. I haven't hit some of them, some of the bigger battles from there. Trying to think of what things like Shiloh and Antietam. I don't know. I may have gotten one of them, but they put out a lot of smaller battles too, right? And I just feel like the brigade level is the wrong level to be handling the smaller battles. This is so optimal for the big battles. I have the same objection to the Viva l'Empereur stuff, which is they stopped doing the huge battles, We had Waterloo, we have Leipzig, and I think that's it in terms of the really big ones. Just trying to think. They've made a lot of smaller battles, which to me, at the brigade level, I don't know. Obviously, I don't feel like I'm playing, a squad leader, one board or two board little thing, or a Panzer Blitz thing. It's not that pathetic in size, but some of them get pretty damn small. And this one just, even though this was the big ticket item in this box, it just doesn't feel like that massive and important a battle. I don't know. Okay, dawn came and went. Oh, I didn't move these guys. I could have shifted another place. Things opened up with the French just firing their artillery off, and they did quite a good job. They hit a couple of the British artillery, and the British are in a much weaker position now. This gun is gone. It had been dropped by one. This gun is down to one. This gun, which wasn't serving much purpose, I'm shifting up to try to cover that flank. It looks like the French are extending that way, and now I've got that. Now, there's an optional hidden movement roll, which probably I should have put into play here. It wouldn't have had any effect, but when units are first revealed into sight of each other, they don't all get to shoot at the same time. They kind of alternate or something. I didn't look up the specifics of it. I didn't really want to, but it gave an unnatural advantage maybe to the French. I think they need it, so I don't feel too bad about it, but I probably should have done that. It only happens when units first get visibility on each other, and it may not, I may have been cheating had I applied it in this condition, simply because these units are not hidden from each other. They know where they are. But something feels a little weird about, hey, it's daylight and I get first shot. The old Wellington's victory system, which includes Ney versus Wellington, which I think I didn't get to, did I? No. I did Monmouth. Allows for this. All fire alternates in that system. It's a cumbersome mechanism that only really kind of matters in this kind of situation. And it matters because the French had massed artillery, and conceivably, the English could have gotten a lucky shot against one of their guns and reduced their firepower a little bit. The French did get lucky shots against the English and did reduce their fire by 2. So, it had an impact in terms of what the English firing back would have been. Not much, though, to be honest. This gun would have been able to fire on the one table. It could have coordinated to be on the one table, with the other. But the range is far enough that they're just not able to actually hit each other. and Wellington moved Mackenzie up, and then he ran back down to talk to Payne here. Now the reason he wanted to do that, I wasn't planning on it. One, it's easier to just move things around with Wellington than otherwise. He's got a small enough army, it's not a big deal. And not like he can't write orders, but, excuse me, I'm having trouble breathing right now. I also got a cav recovery random event, and Anson had a missing strength point, so I was able to recover that. I also found a straggler up here. You know, I looked through here and I didn't see one, but over here at Cameroon, he had taken hits and a straggler because he had actually been attacked. That probably would have recovered overnight, so I just wrote that off. I could have done, you know, the 8 rolls or whatever to get it back, but screw it. But he took losses from some of the artillery fire as well. That was counterfire. That was French fire during the British turn. Yeah, and that's about it. And yeah, I'm planning on moving Payne up. It's pretty obvious the French aren't throwing a threat down here anymore. Sure, they've got a bunch of cav, but that cav's not going to be functional in this area. No orders were discovered. The lost orders were not discovered. And with nothing going on, you know, I'm getting that, hey, get to soften the enemy before you go forward, which unfortunately I tend not to do because I feel like this system doesn't really do a great job of that. But in this case, because the defensive position had a lot of artillery in it, it actually does do quite a bit. So knocking out the enemy's artillery is a really valuable use of like that initial battery fire. I'm not sure the Brits can combine artillery. I seem to remember there's a rule against that in this system. So actually, it just took away the one shot no matter what. Not that they were combining, but I was thinking that they could. So yeah, I guess I'll throw in another turn. After that, I've got to do my raid stuff. That's why these games take so long, and why so much of this is blather, is like my need to chatter each day ends up filling the videos. So I discovered First Corps' missing orders. It means I could write them orders, or I could roll for initiative to obtain orders. I could have rolled for initiative before, but I couldn't do it from my reading, or remembrance and interpretation and whatever. I couldn't do it to reinstate these orders that are missing. Victor simply wouldn't come up with the same set of orders without this being cleared. There's sort of there's a weird gaming mechanism that prevents you from, you know, rolling for initiative to try to copy orders that are already in transit. And I think that applies when the orders are distorted. Here's the thing. One, I'm enjoying softening up. Now, I could roll for an initiative and delay this, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a roll for initiative, and I'm going to delay the implementation of the orders. I don't write my orders before I roll the initiative, but I don't want to launch the attack right away. Now, Joseph and Jordan show up here at 6 a.m. maybe. They start rolling. I can't count on them showing up, but on the other hand, if I wanted to write orders, remember this took me like 4 hours to get there. Now that would only be a couple hours during the daytime, but still, you know, I would be out here or something before I had any chance of getting the orders, which might be the right thing to do. I don't know, but let's do initiative. 54. That ain't gonna do it. Pretty sure. Local initiative. Oh, it does. He's very good. All right, so we'll write him those orders. And it's basically the same orders as I had before, but now it's an initiative order, and I'm going to delay well past dawn, in part because I know these guys aren't ready to support me, right? And I can't give them orders. I could have written them orders. No, I can't. They have distorted orders right now. Can't do that. Okay. Camera's getting really iffy. When I open it up, this is the second time this has happened, I think. When I open it up, it doesn't turn on. Anything having to do with the little screen that flips out is always problematic. It's what seems to break on these cameras the most. Although I did have a power supply issue with the oldest one. A little bit more fire going back and forth in the 530 turn. Brits lost the other gun here. This Spanish gun is firing without me getting to really respond to it. I mean, I guess I could move and set up to fire, but instead I'm just, concentrating on beating up on the British troops here. The main focus of all the French fire is on this, and there's no guns there anymore. Basically, there's guns here that I'm basically trading equal shots with. Guns here that can't do a lot to me. I can't really hit them though. Can I? Yeah, I can. In fact, I think I am trying to. But we're basically lobbing, single shot back and forth. So firing on the one table doesn't do much. And this is the problem, is that like coordinating your artillery, if you don't have the grand battery, whatever, the capability to combine, and I think there's no capability to combine on the British side. They don't have enough guns now for it to matter anyway. But I think the French do have that capability, and that allows them more powerful firepower. Of course, I may be remembering something from a different system. The Viva la Emperor system. I don't recall. I know that there's a limitation in this game that you can't create detachments of more than 2 points of firepower, which is important because it means that if you start playing around with your guns and changing their strengths, sending gun points off to join other things and stuff, they're not going to have the same kind of fire flexibility that they do otherwise, if that rule exists, and I think it does. I don't feel like looking shit up, man. All right, that's it for a while. Okay, so I did another half hour. The distorted orders were discovered. I sent new orders out. Essentially the same thing. I wrote it a little shorter and less specific. Just, support the First Corps, whatever they're up to. Because I don't know what they're up to. But as their left flank. But that's not going to get there until 9:30. Joseph will be on the board before then. Might not make much. Well, he might be. He'll be on the board before then, but he starts rolling this turn. Artillery duel continuing. The guns here have been trimmed down to 1, which effectively silences them. There's nothing I can do with just one gun there. And, I could throw it in with these maybe, depending on what the rules are on that. I think it required they be adjacent, but I'm not sure. And again, I'm not sure if that's this game. But otherwise, not a whole hell of a lot happening in terms of anything, really. See, this feels like the last time I played this, man. Like, failed attack and then nothing happened. Which may explain why I had so few losses. I did find one thing, or figure one thing out. So this counter, on the back of it, has this moving marker. These are supposed to be, like, they're on core commands and whatnot. So if we look on the back of Victor, he has one of them. Maybe there's one that's missing it. Maybe it's in Vimeo. Maybe it's here. I can't find it. So yeah, I'm guessing it's a misprint. It's something I haven't really had to worry too much about because usually a core positions itself at a certain time. And other than the Army, it kind of doesn't matter whether it's moving or not. Like, if it's got orders, the orders make it clear whether or not it can be moving. And for the Army, that usually repositions in a single turn. So it's kind of useful for that, but not terribly. Like, you have orders written that tell you what you're doing. Luck swings one way, luck swings the other. Now it's the French artillery that are getting kind of chewed up. We got one gun pulling out of here because it's too far away to do shit. And being on the line, it's just getting beaten up by the Spanish artillery. Up here, this gun got hit. This unit got hit. English aren't able to target the artillery. They're going to have to turn theirs. I'm allowing people to hand haul their artillery. Otherwise, it would cost 3 movement. Basically, you would take all kind of ugliness, right? You would have to change formation and then spend a movement point to change direction. I don't remember there being any hand hauling rules, but screw it. I'm sick of there not being any. Being able to change one facing with an artillery seems absolutely vital to me. And again, I'm not really into working my way through the rules to find stuff. Maybe it's in there and I didn't find it before. In which case, I'm playing by the rules now. If it's not in there, well, I'm making the decision that whether it's in there or not, I want it. Just because it doesn't make sense to not be able to just reface an artillery piece by one hex side, right? Like one hex spur. The fact that we've got these arcs that are so tiny and that you really couldn't change facing without changing formation, shifting, changing formation again. Whether or not it should generate a reaction fire, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Normally a change of facing wouldn't, so I'd say no. Reaction fire is a little weird. It gives you a little bit too many shots as it is. But anyway, I'd like to be able to start pounding these. And we killed Ruffin. Well, wounded him, whatever. We don't know if he's dead until nighttime. And there won't be another night. Joseph and company did not come in yet. 1 in 6 chance. And nothing's changed. You know, I'm waiting on these orders to come. Victor has his orders. It's Monday. I have an interview tomorrow, like 4. Continuing to disintegrate. We took out another French gun here, but an English one here. Interesting trade-offs. And it's a big deal because I'm expecting this to be my best area for fighting, but now Payne's Cav is in position here. Wellesley's moved back. As to raid, I'm getting so discouraged. I know you don't care about this, but a couple of bad fights on you know, there's this clan boss thing that you gotta fight every day. A couple that just ended up way under what I usually produce, and I have no idea why. And then I was in a race to get some champion. It's just a challenge, and I'm like up against there's 200 people in my group, but there's basically 3 of us that are competing for it. And I thought I was going to sneak up and steal it from 2 people who were ahead of me. And it looks like it's going to be impossible, so I'm like, fuck it, I don't care. I was going to run another turn in, figuring things are going kind of light and everything. I got a heat turn. Off the random table. So I think that's a good time to take a break. Overall, the raid stuff, it's probably a good thing, but you know, I think the reason is that I really want to get this done so I can get to Almoravid. Because I feel like I had big questions with Nevsky. And I mean, I'm all in on Levian campaign, right? Even though I had those questions, and I bought 2 of them, I'm pre-ordered for whatever else has come out on it, and or 2 more, and you know, I have Almoravid and Inferno there. I think that's it. I bought the Border Reefs thinking it was one of them. And I'm glad it's not, actually, because I kind of looks like a nice lighthearted game, whereas the Levian campaign is, oh, I'm fighting my way through it. I read the rules. I'm reading through the playbook now and the history and everything, but you know, it's going to take a totally different mindset to play than anything else. You know, the coin games, which are also by Volko, yeah, they're totally different from everything else, but I feel like, maybe because I've played a few more times, I feel like their mechanisms are sort of, you know, I've internalized them a little bit better, so that when I do pick one up, I'm like, I gotta look at the damn card and figure out what's going on and everything. But it's not, you know, it's not this horrible experience. I'm feeling like I'm absolutely going to have to play Almoravid once, at least a smaller scenario, before I get into it, which is something that usually with series type games or system games, I don't find myself having to do. Like, you know, like I can pick up another coin and I'll be like, I totally screwed up. Although I have to say, the last couple that I did, Falling Sky and Pendragon, certainly Pendragon, required a little bit more than I would like to deal with. I'd like to play Pendragon again. That was, you know, that was complex. I like complex somehow. It draws me in. The things with Raid that's problematic is that, like, I keep getting drawn into the news, right? You know, with the Prigozhin thing and everything especially. But I'm regularly wanting to catch up and listen to news and listen to videos on Raid as well, that like I want to understand, you know, what's going on and everything. And then, you know, I spend most of my time watching videos while I'm playing. I'm usually not playing very heavily, right? It doesn't take a lot of effort. It's just mainly just click here, grind, click, grind, you know. I don't have to pay a lot of attention to the game. It's a mobile gacha game, right? But, yeah. 7 a.m., everything's in the queue in terms of units. So I got rid of my counter tray. I gotta be careful. Some of these things, like these British artillery piece, that works in both this and Vimero. I'm going to try to get them into the markers bag instead of in the Talavera specific, because it was kind of painful figuring out what I needed. Assuming I ever get around to this again, right? You know, that's a big if. I mean, I'm looking at, it took me 10 years to get halfway through the collection that I have. Now that's with adding games and everything. But I'm just like, I never get to replay anything, you know? And there's a lot of things that were on my short list that just aren't getting played, which is painful. Making too many damn games these days. It really is. The Brits took a lot of damage here. This gun's gone. This gun got reduced. It's now a 1-point gun, and it's not, I'm going to have to turn it, but it's not able to return fire to the heavy artillery that's shooting it. Basically, the Brits are going to be without artillery, I think, by the time 8 a.m. rolls around. This video probably will go until that 8 a.m. run. Nobody's coming in. Nothing's changed. This doesn't even get there as an order until 9:30. And who knows how long it'll take to actually accomplish, because I got a long delay there. Right then, so the British artillery is gone. It doesn't mean the hill is trivial to attack, but it does mean I'm not going to suffer the kind of miserable attack that I did last time, where I charged in. So there were two things that you should do, and I'm not good at this, right? I'm not good at sit there and bombard the shit out of and take out the artillery, because artillery is so potent on defense in this system. But it's also powerful on offense when used right. Unfortunately, this terrain, it's not going to be very helpful. Like, I can't drag my guns up and unlimber them and shatter the enemy very easily. At least I don't think I can. I mean, we're looking at a level 3 slope for foot artillery. That's 2 extra movement. The stream is 2 extra and a shaken. So we're looking at like all my movement to get across, be shaken, and then if there's any fire that I'm facing, skirmishers can be canceled out to a large extent. But if there's any fire that I'm facing from artillery or whatever, I'm just doomed. But now there's some possibility to get guns up there, you know. But more than that, I've softened up, I've removed the obstacle of that defensive fire power. Sure, they've got skirmishers. Sure, they've got advantages when I come over to the close combat table because they're up on a hill. But at least they're not going to just wreck my units. The other option is, if I had waited until dark to launch my attacks, I wouldn't have had to face the artillery until I actually entered the hex. And that would have given me a great deal more power. Like, yeah, everything broke on the approach, but they underwent so many fires on the approach, right? Because they take an opportunity fire, walking through this crappy terrain, having to stop, partway to the enemy, so I don't get that fire at point blank range or whatever. And then after the opportunity fire, I get the non-phasing fire right afterwards. So I'm basically taking 2 rounds of shot for having approached during daylight without without removing the artillery. But now the artillery is gone, and I'm just not that clever usually. But this is kind of what Napoleon tried to do at Waterloo as well: is shell the shit out of the enemy positions so that they were softened up. Granted, I'm not going to get a lot of softening on the infantry. That's always been kind of my stance is I can't really soften the infantry too much. But knock out the enemy artillery before you advance. Key matter that, it's Victor, man. Of course he attacked. But we're getting very, very close to launching, to when that attack actually launches. Kind of lucky, right? I got kind of lucky that I wiped out the artillery before my attack launches. I set a time limit on the attack. What I should have done was suppress all the British artillery before you attack. Of course, that may never have happened, right? I mean, it's a 1 in 6 chance with each shot that basically you can knock out a single point of guns. 2 in 6, where I have the heavy gun here, because that's 3 out at range 3. Gives me the 2 table, which can take out a gun on 2 different shots. But that's about all I had, right? Now, where there were guns that I could converge fire and get a lot of firepower going in there, that changed things a little bit. That made it a little bit easier on me. Oh, I'm wondering where the game with the converging fire rule is. It's not this. I don't know if it's the, I don't know what it is. Might be the line of battle series. Joseph comes on the board, he's heading for there. You get to choose where you want to send him. I think this is a good center point. It's defended by these guys. It's close enough to this that I can deal with. And if the battle goes the way I hope for it to go, I'll be able to pivot around and move down, you know, and start collapsing this front, in which case I want to be more to this side than up here. Right? French artillery fire, one big thing, Campbell is getting chewed up. He's nearly wrecked. And that brings us to 8 a.m. when the main show is going to start. So we're going to load this up. It's a slow video, not a lot happened. A lot of artillery fire, a little bit of bat bowling by me. We had a leader loss, random event, but it ended up being somebody who's already hurt. By the way, when I say Campbell, it's kind of interesting. There's multiple Campbells in the game. Not too surprising, I guess. But we got this Campbell 1 here and Campbell 4. And I don't know what got hit. I think I've been taking things on the wrong Campbell. So this is actually Campbell 1. He's been chewed up. I think 3 of the shots are on him. Where is my 4th division? 3rd division is here. 4th division is here. Actually, I think all 3 hits should be up on Campbell 1, in which case he's nowhere near wrecked. Oops. Not at all sure of that because Campbell 1 is over here, or Campbell 4 is over here, and I think he did take at least 1 hit. So I've shifted 2 of the 3 hits over to the Campbell 1 unit, which kind of moved into position late and started taking fire. All right, up it goes, and we should see some serious bloodshed very, very shortly as Victor comes streaming back up the hill. He's got something of a problem. I got no cav here, and I'm facing Payne's cav, which is going to hinder my advance significantly. We're going to see some opportunity charges, etc. My main advance was supposed to come from the north. May not be as big a deal now with the artillery cleared and everything. Because part of the reason that I was doing this was to try to put enough pressure that the British artillery wouldn't all be, you know, I wouldn't be beaten back on every side by British artillery that I'm attacking. Like before, I was getting hit from here and here when I just tried to cross. Well, now with the outflank, there just weren't enough guns to handle everything. But now there are no guns. So things look a lot better in a lot of ways.